I was just 10 years old when I came home from school to find the house silent. No shouting, no clinking of dishes, no smell of dinner. Just silence, and a single yellow note on the kitchen table. "You'll figure it out," it said. No name, no goodbye. Just those 4 words from the 2 people I used to call Mom and Dad. That night, I slept in the bathtub, hugging my school bag. By the next morning, I was in foster care. Fast forward 17 years. I'm now 27. I have a job, a small apartment, and a heart full of cracks I stopped trying to fix a long time ago. I don't talk about my past. I just work, sleep, and survive. But then, a message. A Facebook friend request. From them. "Hey sweetheart, we miss you. Want to come to dinner? Let's talk. Maybe you can start calling us Mom and Dad again." I almost dropped my phone. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Block them, delete the memory. But another part of me, the angry, forgotten part, needed answers. So I said yes. I showed up at their big shiny house, the one they moved into after leaving me behind. The table was full step-siblings, their new spouses, laughter and wine like nothing ever happened. "Look who's finally here," my mother said, smiling like a stranger. I smiled back. Then I stood up, pulled something from my bag, and placed it in front of them. The same yellow note. "You'll figure it out." Their laughter stopped. My father choked on his drink. My mother's face turned pale. "I figured it out," I said quietly. "You don't get to rewrite the past, just because you're ready for it now." And then, I did something none of them expected. I let the silence hang in the air. Heavy, thick, no one moved. My mother stared at the note like it had come back from the dead. My father cleared his throat and tried to speak, but I held up my hand. "I'm not here for your apology." I said, "You had 17 years to send that. You didn't." The step-siblings looked at each other, confused. One of them, a girl about my age with perfect nails and a designer smile, whispered, "Wait, they left you." I looked straight at her. Not just left me. Abandoned me, no calls, no visits. Just a note and a locked door. She blinked like I had just spoken a different language. My mother reached out, her voice trembling. "Honey, we were young, we were broke. We didn't know how to raise you. Things were hard. Things were hard for me too." I cut in, but I didn't get to leave. I was 10. I could feel my chest tightening. But I wasn't going to cry. Not here, not in front of them. They wanted a reunion. A moment of closure where I forgave them, called them Mom and Dad, and smiled for a new family photo. But I came with truth. I reached into my jacket again and pulled out a second note. One I wrote to myself in the group home, years ago. It said, "One day they'll want you back. Don't forget how you survived without them." I placed it next to the first note and stepped back. "You want me to call you Mom and Dad?" I asked, looking at them both. "I don't even call you human." Someone gasped. A fork dropped. No one touched their food. "I built a life. Alone. I'm not here for your comfort. I'm here so you remember what you gave up the day you chose to walk away." My father finally spoke, his voice low. "We thought we were doing what was best." "No," I said, "you did what was easiest." I took a breath, looked around the table. People who'd never once asked where I'd been all these years, because they were too busy living a lie. And then I said what really silenced the room. "I didn't come here to be part of your family. I came to say goodbye to the idea of you." I turned to leave, but just as I reached the door I heard footsteps. And then a voice I hadn't expected to speak at all said something that stopped me cold. "Wait, I knew about you." It was the youngest boy at the table. Barely 17, my half-brother. He stood slowly, eyes filled with something I hadn't seen all night. Guilt. He stood there, trembling slightly, with his hands clenched at his sides. "I knew about you," he repeated. Louder this time, "since I was 12. Everyone turned to him, confused. Even my mother looked startled. "I found a picture once," he said, looking at me instead of them. "A photo of you, taped inside a drawer. You looked like me." I asked Mom who you were. She said you were a cousin who moved away. He looked down, but I kept the picture. My throat tightened. I didn't expect that. My mother's voice was sharp now. "You went through my things." He ignored her, his eyes were on me. "I started looking you up. I found your name in some old school archives online. I followed your trail. Every time they talked about how perfect our family was, I'd stare at that photo and wonder why they threw you away." I blinked, trying to hold back the wave of emotion rising inside me. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "You didn't deserve that. And I didn't know how to reach you. But I want to now, not as a brother. Maybe just as someone who believes you." The table was frozen. You could hear a pin drop. And then my mother did something that made my stomach turn. She started crying. Loud, performative sobs that filled the silence with guilt and manipulation. "Oh God," she cried. "Why are you all attacking me? I did what I thought was right. I was depressed. Your father was overwhelmed. We had no money. I laughed once, quietly. That's funny, I said, because 2 years later, you had money for a new house, a new baby, and a new wedding. Her sobs stopped like someone hit a switch. I may have been 10, I continued, but I wasn't stupid. You didn't leave me because you had no choice. You left me because I was inconvenient. My father stood now too, face flushed. You think it was easy for us, we were drowning. I stepped toward him, and you handed me the anchor. Everyone flinched. Then I turned to the boy, my half-brother, and gave him a small nod. Thank you for keeping the phone. He nodded back. You still look like me, just stronger. A tear slid down my cheek, without permission. I wiped it quickly and turned to go. But just as my hand touched the door, I heard another voice, timid, from the far corner. It was the stepsister. I want to hear more, she said quietly, if you're willing. I turned back, surprised. More about what? I asked. She hesitated, then looked at the others. About you, about what happened, about what they did. I stared at her, unsure whether to walk away or take one last chance to tell my story. I let go of the doorknob and slowly turned around. For a second, no one breathed. The stepsister, Chloe, I think her name was, looked nervous, but her eyes didn't leave mine. I don't know who you are, she said softly, but I can see the truth in your face. And I think, maybe it's time someone actually listened to you. She gestured to the chair at the far end of the table. Not the head of the table. Not the middle. But the far end. Like a witness testifying. I walked slowly back, my shoes barely making a sound on their polished floor. When I sat down, I could feel the tension ripple through the air again. I wasn't nervous. Not anymore. Because now, they were finally going to hear it all. I was 10, I began, when they left. I thought maybe they were coming back. I waited in the hallway until it got dark. I checked the fridge empty. I called my mom's phone, but it had been disconnected. I even sat by the window for hours, thinking maybe they just forgot me. My mother flinched like the truth physically hurt her. I spent my 11th birthday in a group home. No cake, no cards, just a plastic cup of juice and a staff member saying, "At least you're still young." Chloe's eyes were glassy now. The boy beside her was frozen, jaw tight. I learned to be quiet, to make myself small, because every time I spoke up or cried, someone would remind me I was lucky to bed in. I memorized the sound of footsteps coming down the hallway at night. Not all of them were kind. My voice cracked, I swallowed hard. I got through school, I worked after classes. I lied on college applications, just to get a shot. No family references, no emergency contacts, just me. My father's hands were shaking now. I didn't care. And all those years, not once did either of you try to find me. My mother whispered, we didn't know where to start. You started by leaving, I snapped. You knew where that note was. You knew which school I went to. You knew my full name. But you made peace with your decision. I had to make peace with surviving it. Chloe wiped a tear. Why now, why come tonight? I looked at her. Because I thought I'd feel something if I saw them again. I thought maybe closure. And, she whispered. I gave a tired smile. Turns out, you don't need closure from people who never opened a door to begin with. The room fell silent again. No excuses. No outbursts. Just the heavy truth resting on every plate. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out a small envelope, and slid it across the table toward my father. He stared at it like it might explode. It's the bill, I said, for the therapy, the medication, the foster system, all the things you left me to pay for, emotionally or otherwise. He didn't touch it, he just stared at it. Don't worry, I added, it's not real, just a reminder that I paid, so you don't pretend you did. I stood up again, for real this time. You wanted a family dinner, I said. You got one, but next time, leave a seat open for your guilt. I turned once more toward the door. This time, no one tried to stop me. I stepped out into the cool night air and pulled the door shut behind me. No one followed. Not at first. I walked down the stone path in silence, only the sound of crickets filling the night. For a moment, I felt lighter, like dropping the weight of 17 years in one conversation had loosened something inside me I didn't even know was stuck. But then I heard footsteps. Vast, soft, runnings. I turned around, and there he was, my half-brother, breathless, holding the folded photograph in his hand. I don't want this to be the end, he said, voice shaking. Not between you and me. I stayed still. You're not them, I said softly, but you're still part of them. I know, he whispered, but maybe I'm part of you too. He held the photo out toward me. It was faded, creased at the edges. Me, 10 years old, sitting cross-legged in a school uniform, smiling like I didn't know what was about to happen. I kept this all these years. He said, it reminded me that our family isn't as perfect as they say. That someone was missing. He handed it to me. I didn't take it, not yet. I want to know you, he said. Not just this version you had to become to survive. I want to know what your favorite movie is. If you like pancakes or waffles. If you dance in the kitchen when no one's watching. My lip trembled. No one had ever asked me those things. No one had ever wanted to. I know I can't fix what they did. He continued, but I can try not to repeat it. I looked down at the photo, then back at him. What's your name? I asked. Eli. I smiled. For the first time all evening, it wasn't bitter. Okay, Eli, I said. But if we do this, if we build anything, it's ours, not theirs. Deal, he said quickly. I'll even let you pick the first movie. I took the photo and tucked it into my jacket. I'm a popcorn person, I said. He grinned. You don't say. We walked down the driveway side by side. Not family yet, maybe never. But maybe something better. Something we chose. Then, just as we reached the end of the street, a car door slammed behind us. We turned. And there stood my mother, her face pale, her expression unreadable. She held something in her hand, a letter. I didn't write it then, she said. Voice barely above a whisper. But I wrote one now. She held it out toward me. And suddenly, the whole story wasn't over after all. I stared at the letter in her hand like it was on fire. It was white, neatly folded, tightly gripped. Too late. Too clean. I didn't move toward her. Neither did Eli. What is it? I asked quietly. It's everything I should have said. She replied. Back then, all the things I never had the courage to tell you. I narrowed my eyes. So now that you've said sorry on paper, you think I'll call you Mom again? She flinched. No, I don't expect that. She hesitated, clutching the letter tighter. I just wanted to give you something that wasn't a note that said you'll figure it out. The words hung heavy in the air. I don't want your guilt gift, I said. I know, she whispered. But maybe one day you will. I took a slow step forward. Eli tensed beside me. I looked her straight in the eye. You want me to read it? I asked. She nodded. Someday if you can. Then I held out my hand, but not for the letter. For Eli. He looked at me, confused. Hold it for me, I said to him. You keep it. If you ever think I need it, give it to me, but not until I ask. Eli took the letter and tucked it into his jacket. My mother blinked. You're not even going to take it. I'm taking control, I said. That's more than you ever gave me. She opened her mouth, maybe to cry again, maybe to beg, but I turned away. Eli and I walked toward the streetlight, leaving her standing in the cold, and for the first time in 17 years, I felt something settle inside me. Not peace, not forgiveness, but power. The days that followed were quiet, not the kind of silence that echoes like loneliness, but the kind that lets you breathe without fear. I didn't go back to my apartment right away. Eli texted me the next morning and said, if you want, I'll pick you up. Pancakes my treat. I met him at a small diner just outside town. No expectations, no heavy talk, just pancakes, too much syrup, and a booth by the window where no one knew our names. We laughed, we argued about movies. He told me he hated tomatoes, and I told him that made him deeply suspicious as a human being. But when the plates were cleared and the laughter faded, he reached into his jacket and tapped the letter still resting there. I haven't opened it, he said. I won't. I nodded, good. Then he said something I wasn't ready for. She's sick. I blinked, what? Mom, not a cold, not something small. He paused, it's cancer. She got the diagnosis last fall, stage 3. I stared at him, the world narrowing to a tunnel. So that dinner. She wanted you there, he said. Not just for guilt, maybe for goodbye. I looked away, heart pounding. So now I'm supposed to feel bad for not hugging her, for not dropping everything because she's dying. No, Eli said gently, you don't owe her that. I just thought you'd want to know. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because deep down, under all the armor I'd built, there was a part of me still shaped like a daughter. A part that hated her and missed her. A part that whispered, what if this is your last chance to ask why? I stood up, left cash on the table. I need air, I muttered, stepping out into the cool morning breeze. Eli followed quiet. I leaned on a metal railing outside the diner, watching people pass by, living their lives, not knowing that mine had just been cracked open again. If I see her, I finally said, it won't be in a hospital bed. It won't be while she's weak. Eli nodded. Then when? I looked at him. When I'm ready to look her in the eye and not break. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One new voicemail. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. I pressed play, and there it was. Her voice. Hi, sweetheart. I don't know if you'll ever hear this, but I needed to say it somewhere. To someone, maybe I'm not calling to make peace. Maybe I'm calling to confess. But if you ever give me the chance, I'll tell you everything, the real reason. The thing your father and I buried so deep, we hoped even we would forget. My heart stopped. The real reason. She never told me there was a reason beyond selfishness. Beyond fear. Eli looked at me, confused by my expression. What is it? He asked. I slowly lowered the phone. She said there's something I don't know. I stood frozen, the phone still warm in my hand, her voice echoing through me like a whisper in a cave. I never meant to enter again. The real reason. Those 3 words crawled under my skin. Eli waited quietly beside me, respectful but curious. I could see it in his eyes. He wanted to ask, to know, but he didn't push. And that made me trust him more. She said they buried something. I finally said, that there's more to what happened. Eli looked down. I always knew something didn't make sense. They never talked about you, but there were nights, fights, slammed doors, things I wasn't supposed to hear. Your name came up once. Dad shouted it, then everything went quiet. I rubbed my arms, suddenly cold despite the sun. You think she's telling the truth? I asked. I don't know, he admitted, but maybe you deserve to find out. Later that night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the voicemail. I must have replayed it a dozen times. Each time her voice sounded smaller, more cracked, more real. And that scared me more than anything. Because what if she wasn't lying? What if I hated her for the wrong reasons? Then a message came through. Eli, she's agreed to meet. Just you and her. No doctors, no beds, just answers. Tomorrow 4 p.m., same house. I stared at the screen. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone, to forget everything again. But I also wanted to know. So the next day I went. The same long driveway. The same house that once felt like a castle and then a cage. She was waiting on the porch, not weak, not hooked to tubes, just older, quieter, holding something in her lap. A shoebox. Come sit, she said softly. I didn't speak, just sat. She opened the box. Inside were photos, baby pictures, of me, of someone else. Letters, a hospital tag, a birth certificate, and then, a second name, a second child. I looked up confused. Whose is this? She took a long, trembling breath. You had a twin. My world tilted. No, I whispered. Yes, she said, you had a twin brother. We lost him when you were both 10. And after that, we lost ourselves. My breath caught. Why didn't you tell me? Because the way we lost him was because of us. I stared at her. What happened? Her eyes filled with tears. We made a choice that day, one that haunts us. And the note we left you, it wasn't just abandonment. It was escape, from the guilt, from the truth. I couldn't speak. My ears rang. My chest ached. There had always been something missing. I just never knew it had a name. His name was Jonah, she whispered. And you've been carrying his silence all your life. I stood up too fast. The ground swayed. Twin. Brothers. Gone. Left behind, not because I was too much, but because they couldn't bear to face what they did. And now it was my story to finish. I stumbled back from the porch, the name echoing in my ears like a bell I hadn't heard in 17 years, but somehow still recognized. Jonah, my twin, my other half. Gone. I stared at her, my mother, the woman who raised me until 10, and then disappeared, carrying a secret so enormous it bent the shape of my whole life without me knowing. Tell me what happened, I said. My voice was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that comes before the storm. She looked up at me, and I saw it in her eyes, not just guilt. Terror. I don't want to hear that it was a car accident. I warned, or that he got sick. Because I can see it in your face. It wasn't that simple. She nodded slowly, lips trembling. You're right, she whispered. It wasn't simple, it was horrible. She reached into the box again, and pulled out a picture. 2 children, side by side, matching pajamas, one with a crooked grin, me. The other him. Jonah. I dropped into the porch chair like my knees gave out. She continued. It was the end of summer. You two were always getting into things, curious. Wild, but that day, your dad left the garage door open. And there were tools, power tools. You were both playing hide and seek. I already felt sick. Jonah hid in the back, behind the shelf. We didn't notice the shelf was loose. She stopped. I whispered, it fell. She nodded, tears streaming. We found him too late. My chest felt like it was caving in. And you, she said, voice breaking. You were hiding under the stairs. You didn't see it happen, but you heard it. You screamed and screamed until your voice went hoarse. After that, you didn't speak for almost a month. I blinked. I don't remember that. You blocked it out, the trauma. You forgot, and we let you. We were too broken, too ashamed to remind you. My fingers trembled in my lap. So you just walked away. No, she said. We ran, because every time you looked at us, we saw him, and every time we looked at you, we saw what we lost, and what we caused. My breath shook. You think that makes it better? I asked. That abandoning me was some kind of mercy. No, she said, shaking her head violently. It was cowardice, and I live with that every day. I stared at the photo in my hand. Jonah. My twin. My missing half. The shadow I had always felt but never seen. I whispered his name, and it hurt in my throat like broken glass. Then I stood. I don't forgive you, I said. She nodded. I don't expect you to. But I need to know more, every detail. Everything you never told me. She gestured to the shoebox. It's all in there. Every letter I wrote but never sent. His death certificate, the therapy records. Even the drawings you made when you stopped speaking. I clutched the box to my chest. I'm going, I said, but this time, I'm the one leaving the note. She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. I pulled a pen from my bag, wrote 4 words on the back of Jonah's photo. You'll figure it out. And I laid it on the porch step as I walked away. But this time, I wasn't broken. I was whole, because now I knew his name.